are you feeling?
About 80%.
Is that 80% on your hand?
Now my hand was just a cleanup. My TFCC's been torn for since 2011, and every time I did this motion, like I'm hitting, the flap of it was basically rubbing against whatever it was rubbing against. So they had to go in there and cut that flap off to ease up that pain for me. So I would think of it more so as like just a cleanup.
And is that something that had been bothering you since 2011 and you knew about it, but it was just kind of, you just fought through it, or why
No,
did it take?
it wasn't bothering me until recently. Um, when I was experiencing it for a couple of years, but it just got worse and worse. But like last year, there were so many issues. The hamate, I thought it was the hamate at first, and when we cleaned up the hamate, when I was still feeling, the TFCC, it kind of made that a little bit more clear.
Got it. So the hope was, the expectation was that taking care of the hamate was going to take care of that pain that you had been feeling, but it didn't go away. So it was like, what else is going on? And so they had to go back in and reinvestigate.
Correct.
Very good. Thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it. As far as this clubhouse goes, how are you feeling about not only the physical talent that's in there, but the makeup of this team heading into the season?
We have a very good chemistry as a team. With a lot of big names, you would expect big egos, but that's not the situation over here. Everyone meshes together really well. Everyone pulls for one another, and we all have the common goals. So AJ did a tremendous job, and of course the coaching staff down to the trainers.
As far as last year and a team on a rebuild, sometimes the first step is just get over 500. Then the next year it's okay, now we get to the playoffs. You guys eclipsed both of those things last year. How important was that playoff experience and getting a taste of that last year for this team?
Uh, you kind of nailed it. Getting a taste of it for everyone, but we have um, so much expectations this year to do better and go further. And we're all pulling for that ultimate goal.
One of the skill sets that the Padres most prized about you bringing you over, I think, was your ability to command the strike zone. And last year, this organization, I mean, it was a complete turnaround in this lineup. How much did you enjoy sort of seeing that turnaround, being a part of it, spearheading it in some ways, and how much does it make a difference when an entire lineup is doing that in terms of helping each other?
It's just something that good teams do. The only team I could kind of think of, and Hosmer might have been a part of it, was the Royals that won a World Series, and they didn't really have a lineup like that. Um, but they did a lot of other things very good. But, when you look at teams that make the playoffs today, from top to bottom, they have a whole bunch of guys that grind out at bats and control the strike zone. With the way pitchers are throwing the ball today, 95 plus with great secondary pitches, you have to make them work and build up a pitch count. Um, and that's just something that we focus on over here.
Thanks, Tommy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next, we go to Annie Hallburn.
Hey, Tommy, it's good to see you. I'm glad to see you're doing okay. I wanted to see if you would be willing to share a little bit about what happened in November as far as the recovery from the stabbing. That wound seemed deep. I know you've recovered from a lot of injuries in your life, but to recover from that back one, especially rotation and things like that, muscle, what was the recovery like physically, mentally, emotionally from that?
Recovery. Let me think. I was on bed rest for a little bit. I couldn't really move. The cuts deep. The doctor here basically told me if I wasn't so muscular, I might be I might be dead or paralyzed. So I'm lucky. I'm lucky even be able to play. I thought I wasn't going to be able to play again. When I got stabbed and I was getting rushed to the hospital, I was on the phone with AJ and the training staff, or Rogo to be exact. I thought I wasn't going to be able to play. So When I got the CT scan, the doc was like, "I got great news for you," and she was like, "You could play." She just said it's going to be a little bit of recovery. As far as the timeline, what it was like, I mean, I was flying to San Francisco every week for about 6 weeks to go get shot up with some Regenokine to help the inflammation. Then, I work with a few doctors on getting to where I'm at because, it's only been about 4.5 months and the timeline is normally a little bit longer. But from a strength, from a rotational standpoint, I mean, my numbers when we test myself out, my numbers are pretty high compared to everyone else. The only thing I'm really lacking is squatting and deadlifting. My norms aren't there yet. But you don't really have to squat a lot and deadlift a lot to be a good baseball player.
Yeah, and from the videos we could see this off season, it looked like you were, working really, really hard, similar to what you've done in past off seasons. Just you've been through a lot in your life. How scary was that? I mean, to face not only playing baseball again, possibly not playing, but also possibly losing your life. I mean, what was that like emotionally?
I mean, the way I look at it, my time wasn't quite yet. So, God kind of has other plans for me.
Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Marty Caswell.
Good morning, Tommy. You said earlier that you were at 80%. What does an 80% Tommy Pham bring to the Padres? And do you feel like you have something to go ahead and prove this season?
I mean, from a running standpoint, what I normally run on the treadmill is 25. I mean, I should say my best on my treadmill at home was 25 miles per hour in the past. And before I left, I was at like 24.3. So I'm not too far off from my best. Just physically, like I said, I can't squat a lot yet or deadlift a lot because, my back's just not ready. I'm only, like I said, 4.5 months. Hitting wise, my swing, rotation, and all that is fine. I've been hitting for a long time, actually. I've been throwing, hitting, doing all my baseball stuff for a couple months now. Just physically, from the lower body standpoint, I'm not there, but there's other ways I've worked to build that up. The next part of your question, I probably had the most to prove because, I had a terrible year. I know analytics with the best of them. My WRC was down, and that's something I look at. I was negative in defensive runs saved last year, -1 to be exact. I always take pride in not being negative because I don't want to be a detriment to the team on the field. So, this is my free agent year as well. So I feel like I had the most to prove because I know I'm not a 78 WRC hitter, and I know I'm not a negative defensive player. I know what I'm capable of bringing to the table. With my speed and my athleticism, I know I'm capable of being an above-average elite player in this game.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Was it tougher to come back? I'm just thinking about how your year started with getting COVID and then, of course, living in a bubble for most of the season like your teammates. Was it tougher to come back from these things mentally or physically?
No, to be honest with you, I was raised by my grandmas and my mom, and they basically kind of instilled in my life, you can't be no weak. Mentally, you can't be no weak black man. So I always kind of pride myself in that.
My last question: what was your thoughts on trading for Blake Snell?
I loved it. I love all the moves AJ made to help our team. Everyone, you know, from we're seeing how good Kim is. Snell's one of the best pitchers. He's really going to help us, especially in this division. You know, we have you know, the Giants and the Dodgers. They have a lot of left-handed hitters who could swing that thing, and you know, Blake's going to make it a little bit harder for them.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll go to Adam Klug.
I have a bit of a follow-up on what Marty just asked. What role did you play in the pursuit of and acquisition of Blake Snell?
You know, I just gave AJ my 2 cents. That's all. You know, he's the main guy. He's the GM. I'm just the player GM.
All right, next we'll go to Kevin Acey.
I mean, it was so off last year, the numbers, short season, injury with your hand. When you look back, why was last year such a down year?
I mean, I only played 30 games. I think if we would have played 162, or for me, if I would have finished playing the 130, I think it would have evened out.
All right, next we'll go to Bernie Wilson.
Hey, Tommy, how you doing? Sorry, let me get my camera going. Have the police told you anything about the investigation of the stabbing, and are you disappointed there hasn't been an arrest 4 months later?
Yeah, it's an ongoing investigation, man. You know, I'm not your question. That's not something I could talk about.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to AJ Cassavell.
Thomas, obviously considering how much you love playing this game, did that incident give you maybe new perspective given where you are now and kind of how excited you are to be able to get back out on the field?
I couldn't hear your question quite well. Could you repeat it?
Did that incident give you new perspective maybe on being able to be out on the field this season, given that you came so close to maybe not being able to be out there?
Nah, not really, man. I still look at everything almost the same. If anything, I probably would just spend more money and stop saving as much, because you know, if I die, then I feel like I have too much money in the bank and I didn't live enough.
And then switching gears, what specifically makes Blake Snell tick, and what makes him that dominant pitcher that he is?
His arsenal. You know, if you look at Blake, he has really 4+ pitches and he commands them. You know, not too many guys. I don't know if there's probably a handful of guys in the big leagues that could do that.
All right, time for just a couple more questions. We'll go to Dennis Lynn.
Hey, Tommy, you mentioned giving AJ your 2 cents. How's the way he interacts with players, his own players, maybe a little different than any other GM you've been around?
I think he's somewhat similar to Neander. You know, he kind of likes to hear how players feel about other players, you know, before he makes a move, and I think that's beneficial to teams, actually.
In terms of getting to know players, have you noticed he kind of drills down a little deeper than some other executives around the game?
Absolutely. That's very healthy.
And how does he go about doing that?
I don't want to release, you know, spill all the beans, you know, but I think in baseball in general, it's good to get to know, you know, your teammates and your players, because we all come from different backgrounds. You know, I have teammates from Korea, Japan, DR, Venezuela, and you know, I've played winter ball. You kind of get to see how everything's different. It gives you a different perspective about people.